Hello, and welcome to episode number 73 of the Lines podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by Brett Collson and FairwayJay, where we run down all of the big news, all the big bets, all the big happenings in all of the gambling industry. Sports betting, DFS, a little bit of poker, whatever it might be, we will cover it here on the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, so be sure and go and subscribe over there. You can follow us on the Twitter machine at TheLines at PlayPicksUS. Let's kick things off here, Brett, with some NBA news. Of course, the NBA right around the corner. It is crazy to think we are only 2 weeks away from this being a reality. There is going to be real NBA games on television. We got the preseason going on right now, and in one of those preseason games, something happened for the very first time for one of the NBA favorites.
Yeah, guys, Ben Simmons made a three-pointer. That is the news of the preseason so far, that an NBA player made a three-pointer. And the great thing about this is Sixers fans saw this and started betting on the 76ers to win the NBA title. According to PointsBet, following that game where Simmons made his three-pointer, they got a flurry of action on Ben Simmons to win MVP and the Sixers to win the championship. So all of a sudden at PointsBet in New Jersey, Ben Simmons, they have the most liability on Ben Simmons to win MVP. I think his odds shortened from like 100 to 1 to 80 to 1. I know he's down to 50 to 1 at DraftKings, so they probably got a flurry of action on Simmons to win NBA and be MVP over there as well. But Mr. Simmons, an LSU guy, Matt, is the story of the preseason so far.
He is a former LSU Tiger, could not shoot at LSU either, and goes to the pros. I mean, just a dynamic player in every other phase of the game. But yeah, his long-distance jumper has been absolutely atrocious. And I'll tell you, there was word in the offseason that he was working constantly on that. And listen, another person that's making news because of his shot is Lonzo Ball. If you guys watched some of the Pelicans preseason games as well, he changed that funky shooting style of his. He actually has a more traditional delivery on his shot now and was banging down some threes of his own in the preseason over there. So at least good to see these guys went and put in some work and trying to get better along the way. Jay, as we look at these odds, Giannis comes in as the, overwhelming favorite for MVP, rightfully so, plus 260 over at DraftKings. Then we're kind of looking at Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, and on down the line here. Do any of these other names, I mean, I completely understand why Giannis is the favorite. I actually probably would say right now, if I were picking an MVP, it would also be Giannis, but we're not going to lock our money up for 6 months on a plus 260. So do any of these other guys kind of pique any of your interest?
Well, I was trying to do a quick research and recap what Giannis was before last season, what his odds were, because he was certainly longer than the usual crew here of Curry and the favorites that we see. But when I look at the board, if I'm going to play an NBA regular season, it's going to be on a player, not where you have like Davis and LeBron sharing the star spotlight on the Lakers. I think they can cancel each other out. And the voters, you got to remember, I think they can be a little fickle on how they look at voting in who they ultimately come from, because last year you saw Harden have just a tremendous year, scoring 36 points a game, and he didn't get the MVP, but it was a player that came up and really carried his team like Giannis. So as I look down the board a little bit, I'm intrigued by like a Donovan Mitchell on Utah, who I think now have even more pieces in place to not only be strong defensively, but have a guy like Mitchell be able to carry that type of team. And he's at least 50 to 1. I know DraftKings got him 50, and I think you can get him longer elsewhere.
So, Brett, when you take a look at this, I mean, we have Curry at 550, Harden at 700, LeBron at 700, Kawhi at 700, and Anthony Davis at 800. So, I mean, I'm not really, again, even at 8 to 1, right? I'm not really looking to lock up my money at 8 to 1 for 6 months here. So you're going to have to find me kind of double digit type guys and maybe something a little bit longer here for me to at least have a sweat through over the course of the season. I just don't want money locked up for something like that. So as you take a look at some of these other names, is there anything that maybe piques your interest a little bit for some of these longer shots?
I like Jokic at plus 1,400. I'm looking at this list here. There's a lot of players who have another top MVP candidate on the same team. So those votes are going to cancel each other out. There's nobody on the Nuggets who's going to win other than Jokic. He's their guy. And he plays for one of the better teams in the NBA. The Nuggets have a legit shot at making a run this year, I think, with it being more wide open. So Jokic at plus 1,400. Apparently, I'm not alone. It looks like 10% of the bets at DraftKings are coming in on Jokic to win MVP. So that would be my play. I think you're right. Giannis is the clear favorite. I think even at plus 260, that doesn't even look that terrible to me because I don't see Harden. I don't see Harden being in the running this year, and his odds have dropped a bit because of Westbrook coming in and probably splitting votes. But that's all I really see is Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two, if you want to just take dart throws here. For me, I think the two dart throws would be Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. I mean, if you look at these guys, I mean, we know what their upside is, and we understand that they're absolutely dynamic and players that can take over an entire game. Can they do it over the course of an entire season? That is something that we will have to find out right here. At plus 260 for Giannis, I guess my only problem is, look, the juice really, to me, the juice isn't worth the squeeze because all you need is this guy to miss 3 weeks of the season due to injury. And then your money's lit up and you weren't even getting anything really in return anyway. So, for me, just not even close to a play here. But what are your thoughts on Kyrie or Luka?
Luka, I guess I don't think the Mavericks are quite there yet. I don't see them being.
No, I guess I'm more looking at 70-1 though, right? Like I was kind of like looking if you want to take a dart throw on someone that, again, we try to paint a picture of how this could possibly play out. And if they were, I mean, again, like we have to just try and get lucky in all of this. So, I mean, this is, you have to get lucky in some of these things. But, I mean, if the Mavs in this Western Conference, which isn't just completely locked down yet, we don't know for sure that the Clippers and Lakers are going to work. Like, we don't know that 100%. Say the Mavs are able to, get up into, like I say, a 3 seed or something like that. And he would have to be the reason that would get done,
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Irving, kind of in the same situation, right? If the Nets are in it, and
it's just because the Eastern sucks so much. It's just like the Eastern Conference sucks so bad that it's like if it's not Giannis, then like who's doing it in the Eastern Conference, right? I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
And going back to Simmons, I don't hate him as a long shot. I'm a narratives guy with these MVP voting, and if Simmons is suddenly a threat to hit jump shots, I think he's in play. If they're like a 1 seed and all of a sudden this guy is a well-rounded offensive player, I mean, even if he could prove he can hit like a third of his 3-pointers, that's enough
to where he's going to have like triple doubles like once a week. Like he's going to have triple doubles once a week.
It changes the way defenses like have to adjust to this entire team. So I mean, I think Simmons is pretty interesting. Is he going to win MVP? And probably, obviously not likely, but hopefully you got in on the Simmons train before he started making 3-pointers. 0 for 17, this guy in his career, but nice to see him actually knock one down in the preseason.
Which lets you know just how much confidence he did not have in himself, because you're saying he's only shot 17 of them, in his career.
Now he's saying that he's just going to let it rip if he has an open look. I mean, that's great. I want to see it consistently. His delivery still looks pretty bad. It's an embarrassment to jump shots everywhere. I mean, you said Lonzo fixed his delivery. I don't see much difference in what Simmons has, but we'll see.
Jay, looking at how the NBA title futures are playing out here over at DraftKings, they provided us with some information here. No surprise, most likely. I mean, LA Lakers are getting the majority of the handle there. 26% of the handle that they have gotten has come in on the LA Lakers to take it down. Right behind the 76ers here. And again, 1, talented, 2, Eastern Conference with not a lot of resistance over there. And then also 3, there is definitely some regional stuff going on there as well. The next few are kind of interesting here. After the Sixers, we have two that are coming in at 8% of the handle. Warriors makes a little bit of sense. Obviously, this is still a team that we expect to be good. They're just not going to be great again. But the Brooklyn Nets coming in with 8% of the handle so far. This is certainly something we can chalk up to regional bias here.
No question. And you're going to see a lot of that support for those teams, and certainly some of the bigger trades. When you see Davis go to the Lakers, that's driving, along with LeBron, fueling some of the Lakers' interest, which is clearly we saw this even lower before. It's just it's a huge reaction to what's happening in the marketplace to the players that are on the move. But I think you need to look at the season win totals, have a good grasp on the teams and the players, and obviously hope if you're betting these that you don't have some key players go down with injury. But I'm back to looking at a team that's still, I think, under the radar from a defensive perspective, and that's the Utah Jazz. Their season win total is solid at 54, and if I were, again, looking down the board a little bit and not going at any of favorites on the odds, I'd be looking at a team like that to maybe put a potential future play on, and then know that they're expected to be a solid team with a season win total that's right up there in the mid-50s, and have the defensive components. And now I think a player or two that can add to their offensive balance and make them more competitive, and a top tier in a Western Division that's clearly clearly the best conference. But you're going to look down the board a little bit to find a team like the Jazz that has a little better opportunity, I think.
Definitely. Now, Brett, if you're looking at kind of dart throws here, I think the smart strategy, and again, we're talking about dart throws. If you just want to if you want to be holding a lottery ticket for at least some sort of sweat as this season goes on, I think if you're going to go the lottery ticket route, you just have to pick one of the Eastern Conference teams, because the path to getting there is just so incredibly easier than it is in the Western side, to where, look, we've seen weird things happen in 7-game series before. So if you can just get your team to the finals, weird things can happen. We saw, listen, you get to the finals, and then weird injuries happen, like they did with the Warriors this past year, to where the team that got there throughout the course of the year isn't even the team that's actually playing in the finals. And so if you're going to do that, Pacers at 18-1, Heat at 27-1, even the Orlando Magic, which didn't really do a ton in the offseason, but at least kept that core of that team there, and they've basically been playing together now for a little while. There should be, if you would think that there would at least be a couple of steps forward with that team, just because of everybody being together for so long. They're at 42-1. I'd rather be holding one of these dart throws over in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, how about the Miami Heat? I kind of like the Heat this year. They finally got rid of Whiteside, get Bam Adebayo some run. They got some nice veterans on this team here. Now, Dragic is obviously going to be back. They added Jimmy Butler. They got some nice young guys here, too. They added Tyler Herro. They brought Myers Leonard over. So that would be my little dart throw in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 27-1, I think that's a good ticket to be holding, because if it's not, if it's not the Bucks and Sixers that are dominating, then I think it is completely wide open. I mean, just absolutely wide open over there in the Eastern Conference, and weird things can certainly happen in a 7-game series. And speaking of weird things happening, that is basically how we can describe what went on in the Major League Baseball playoffs. If you guys did not catch how this all went down, I feel sorry for you. It was absolutely nuts. I was sweating the Nationals and Dodgers game. I have a futures on the Nationals. I had the Nationals in that game. I had a Nationals series ticket, so there was a lot on the line for me. Looked like it was almost all but dead for that Nationals team. And then Clayton Kershaw, they bring him back out in the 8th inning after he comes in to get Adam Eaton in the 7th inning, lefty versus lefty matchup, and gets him. They bring Kershaw back out as opposed to going to one of their guys out of the bullpen that's used to kind of pitching in these situations. Kershaw gives up back-to-back solo home runs. The Nats tie it and then go ahead and win in 10 innings here. Brett, did you stay up for the game? Did you have any inkling on Nationals or Dodgers or anything like that?
I fell asleep in the 9th inning. How embarrassing is that? I'm so old, man. Like, I can't even stay up to watch this playoff game in extra innings. I missed the grand slam. It's disappointing, but I did get to see the Rendon homer, which was unbelievable, by the way. Like, how did he golf that pitch out of the park? That's what started it all.
Yeah, and here's the thing is it's the easy thing and the low-hanging fruit to come in and say, playoff Kershaw, look at this, look at that. Sometimes the hitter just wins, and Rendon is an MVP candidate, and this guy took a pitch, literally a good pitch that would have bounced off the damn plate, it seems like, had he not hit it out of the park, and he hit it out of the park. I mean, like Kershaw, you can't blame stuff like that on Kershaw. Everyone just wants to pile on here. Jay, did you have any action on the game, on the series? Do you have any futures that you're sitting on here for the rest of the baseball season?
Didn't play it, and yet I actually watched the latter part of the game after the 2 homers were given up. So I saw it at 3-3, and then I saw the highlights of the home runs, and then watched the latter innings and the Kendrick grand slam to win it. But remember in the bottom of the ninth when it was tied, the Dodgers almost got the walk-off win, deep fly ball by their rookie that went to the wall, and otherwise the Dodgers be celebrating. But that's I thought the Nationals had value in the series, despite what everyone, you hear the announcers now talking about what a major upset it was from a series standpoint, and the Dodgers going out with 106 wins. But now we have tonight a potential of that happening again with the Astros, who have another real strong pitcher on the mound. But I didn't have any action on the Nationals or that series. I was intrigued by the Nationals going into the playoffs because of their starting pitching, but still had concerns about their bullpen. And yet here it is. Their bullpen holds up better than the Dodgers last night.
We talked about the Nationals having value before the season with all the hype around Bryce Harper and the Braves resurgence. They were a pretty interesting team as a value play coming in. So, that's a team we were looking at way before any of this happened.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good. I have I've got a World Series ticket on them. I didn't get it. I got it like relatively not long ago. I got it about a month ago, so it's not a huge payout or anything like that. I did have them in the series here against the Dodgers, and I did have them last night, and that was strictly just a price play here because of the short 5-game series and being able to go to the arms that they're able to go to. As starters, it just seemed like it got mispriced to me. I ended up getting the game last night. I got Strasburg at plus 165 in that game, and he didn't look sharp to begin, but he settled down and was able to keep them in the game, and eventually, of course, was able to go on and win this thing. But Brett, the odds were just bouncing and ping ponging all over the place throughout the course of the night in this thing.
Yeah, DraftKings was kind enough to send us over some of the live betting numbers after each of the important events throughout the game, and yeah, they were bouncing all over. Plus 700 after the Max Muncy home run in the first inning, then plus 1,300 the Nationals were after the Kike home run in the second inning, and then in the sixth they make it 3-1, it's down to 330, and then back up to plus 1,200 after Kershaw comes into the game, and then he gives up the home runs, and all of a sudden it's like almost even money. It was a lot of fun, and if you're just sitting at home, even if you don't live in a state right now where you can legally bet on these games, just watch how the live odds move throughout a game. It's pretty fascinating how quickly things can change just in baseball with even just one pitch. Everything can just change like that, and it's a pretty fascinating sport to live bet.
It really is. It was fun. I was on the air last night over at VSiN, and we were kind of thinking we were in for a very dull ending to this game, and then we're able to really sweat out how things all played out, and felt pretty good about how the ending, obviously, for me, and there were a couple other guys in the studio that had some Nationals tickets as well. But man, it is one of those things, never over till it's over. And except for the Dodgers fans that I don't know if you, Brett, you fell asleep, and Jay, you probably did see this. The second the ball clears the wall, the Howie Kendrick grand slam, Brett, all these guys that paid who knows infinite amount of money for this Game 5 ticket, they were just funneling to the exits. They didn't even hang around to watch their team hit in the 10th inning. It was straight up just like a steady stream of people jetting out of there. By the time the 10th inning come around, you could have sat right behind home plate. Like it was that's how many seats were empty.
They probably looked at the live odds, which were minus 10,000 for the Nationals after that grand slam. They were pretty much drawn dead after that.
Yeah,
so
it was crazy.
I did see that. I actually kind I got some enjoyment out of that.
I'm going to go off the rundown here just a little bit before we hit the NFL, because there actually is some big games in college football this week. We don't talk a ton of college football on the pod, but when, you got a number 6 versus number 11, you got a number 7 versus number 5, this is probably some stuff to talk about here. I mean, the big marquee game of the week here is Florida heading down to Baton Rouge to play LSU in this one. LSU going off as 13.5-point favorites in this one. Jay, want to get your thoughts here before I kind of come in. I obviously have some pretty strong takes on this thing, but LSU has looked great for sure, but outside of the Texas game, their schedule has been Charmin soft.
Yeah, and that's, again, strength of schedule. We see it throughout the season. Early on, teams playing non-conference and not getting tested as much, and we saw Clemson go to North Carolina and on the road in a conference game laying big prices. And this is clearly an LSU team that's on the rise, and with Burrow really moving up the Heisman ranks but having a tremendous season, they're going to get the support, yet you're going to pay a premium and a price. That being said, they are I read an article about defensive dominators, and both these teams are showing real solid, not top-tier defense, but solid enough. And that makes anytime you have a defense that can at least slow an opponent somewhat, they have to be attractive at this price point. I'm not involved in the game. I'm not playing it. I kept looking at Florida and wondering if they're going to still be able to maybe get on the board enough here against LSU in this environment. But it's something to watch. You're going to see inflated prices on these top teams. And I wrote an article as well about strong balanced offenses and teams that really move the ball well. LSU is a little more one-dimensional. They're passing it tremendously, but they're also leading the country in scoring at 52 points a game. And that's what's going to have a lot of the attraction on betting these top teams and laying this price. But I'm not so certain this week with a good defense in Florida.
Yeah, Brett, I got to admit, if there's some more support for LSU between now and kickoff and this thing actually hits 14, you might see me go ahead and place the emotional hedge bet against my Tigers here. I think that 2 touchdowns is just a little bit too much in this game. I mean, yeah, it is a night game in Baton Rouge in Tiger Stadium, which is going to be absolutely bonkers. There's going to be dudes that have been drinking for 10 hours by the time this game kicks off, and it's going to be nutso. But 2 touchdowns against this Florida defense here, where LSU has certainly been able to move the ball, but you got to look at some of these opponents that they've had so far. I think it's a little too high here, and if it were to get to 14, you might get, I don't know, maybe like a half unit bet from me here on Florida. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, this is interesting because Jay mentioned the lines on the top tier teams being inflated. Is the drop off really that much between LSU and Florida? Is it like the top 6 here in college football and then the rest? LSU is number 6 behind Oklahoma, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson. And then there's Florida at number 7. Why is this line 13? Is it really that much difference?
Yeah, I know. And look, I understand it's a true freshman quarterback, and I get all of that. Sure. But I mean, look, they shut down Auburn basically last week. I mean, Bo Nix was not able to get anything done whatsoever. Is Joe Burrow definitely markedly better than Bo Nix? Of course he is. Yes. But I mean, it was pretty dominant in the way that they handled that game last week. I'm actually pretty interested. This total is at 56, and I understand this is I understand this is a high scoring offense in LSU, but again, when you look at 52 points a game, you're talking about Northwestern State, you're talking about Utah State, you're talking about Georgia Southern. I mean, you're talking about these games where they were putting up 60 points against teams that the 3 of us could go out there and have some success against. And so I don't know, man. 56. Jay, did the total look? Does it seem at all off to you? I mean, I think a 24-21 game, 24-17 game is very much in the realm of outcomes in this thing.
Yeah, again, when you're looking at a team that's scoring as much as LSU, and remember, they're 4-0 against the spread against FBS teams. The only team they didn't cover was Northwestern State, which they still scored at will and their offense moved the ball. But I look at a game last week where you had Ohio State at home against a really good Michigan State defense. that may be a little overrated defensively, but their statistical profile is very good. And Ohio State still moved the ball and still put up, 500. They push towards 500 yards, and they can have that type of success. LSU is not quite as balanced as Ohio State. They throw it a lot more, but Florida showed against Auburn that they, in the trenches especially, that they can slow a team that's really, Auburn's tremendous on the defensive line, and Florida still showed that they can have some success at least moving the ball. So I think the total is a little high. You're going to pay a little bit on the markup because LSU is scoring so much, but I'm still, right now, until I evaluate just a little bit more, I won't have a play on this game, and I maybe this is one where you look in game and see it, right, and visually see what's happening and see, is Florida able to slow it somewhat, and then even with maybe an adjustment down in the total, if there's not much scoring, you can still take advantage.
Another ranked versus ranked game. Alabama is going to hit the road and go over to College Station, take on Texas A&M. Alabama laying 17 points here in an SEC game on the road against a ranked team. Brett, I talked to Matt Lindemann from over at Circa Sports last night, and he said they're not really getting any action whatsoever on this game because I asked him if it was just Alabama fatigue, and he said, yeah, listen, week in, week out, you have to lay these massive numbers with this Alabama team, and just people are tired of sweating, whether there's going to be these weird backdoor covers and stuff because Alabama is, taking their foot off the gas and stuff. And so, this is basically where this game opened. It basically hasn't moved at all, and it's just a ranked versus ranked SEC game that nobody cares about.
Yeah, that is interesting. I maybe because there are some other marquee games on the slate this week, that's kind of taking attention away from that one. But that the theory there makes sense, that people are just tired of having to lay these massive spreads with Alabama, and you don't know what's going to happen in the second half, late in the fourth quarter, that kind of thing. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. Jay, have you taken any of these, massive numbers in college football with some of these top teams so far this season? Of course, it's just huge numbers every time Alabama takes the field. Georgia's got an SEC matchup again this week, and they're laying 23.5, 24. You've got Clemson that's taken on an ACC team in Florida State that is shocking to me that you are approaching 4 touchdowns from a Florida State team. That school is still located in Florida, which has one of the top 3 most fertile recruiting grounds in the entire country, and they are 4 touchdown dogs to Clemson in this game. Are you playing any of these games so far this year, or are these just kind of sit back and watch, and you're kind of just more evaluating for later in the season, maybe once the playoffs roll around?
Unfortunately, I beat my head a few too many times taking the big points in these games, only to see Ohio State keep rolling and running it up, and I want to see it maybe a little bit more deeper in the season, where you're still going to have some stronger teams that can stack up. A&M did not look good and did not play well against Auburn at home, and they were favored. And so I'm concerned with the quarterback going on the road at Alabama, how they're going to hold up, and whether they're going to be able to score. Alabama clearly is a juggernaut offensively right now. Again, pass heavy, not as balanced, but pass heavy. I don't think their defense is quite what it's been in seasons past, but I don't see A&M scoring much. So if I'm playing that game, I still would probably look at a favorite, and yet I've been betting these underdogs and really struggling. I'm going to try to find better spots in these games. Remember this about Clemson and Florida State. Last year, I remember I played Florida State, and they just got rolled by Clemson in this game. And I was taking, I think, 14, thinking, how can Florida State be taking 14 at home in this game? And they absolutely got annihilated. And so Clemson, does Florida State have the talent maybe to at least keep it marginally within range? Yes, but Clemson still is that good, and they're, despite not getting it done at North Carolina and escaping with a win, they're that much better right now than Florida State, even with all that talent that seemingly they can get in the state.
Brett, the only other game I do think that there will be some pretty good action on this week, Oklahoma taking on Texas, the Red River rivalry now. They don't want you to say shootout, but these two teams going at it here, a total of about 75.5 in this game. Of course, we know the reputation of the Big 12. It is they go and play a bunch of offense and don't play any defense here. How are you looking at this one, or is this just to sit back and enjoy, what we assume to be a ton of touchdowns?
Yeah, I'm hoping we get what we got last year with that 48-45 game when Marquise Brown and Kyler just stormed back late in that game. That was one of the games of the year. I wouldn't touch this one. I think probably if I had to, I would just take the points with Texas. But yeah, this is one of those games where you just kind of sit back and hope to see some fireworks.
Jay, do you have any thoughts on Oklahoma, Texas here, or is this a stay away as well?
Haven't played yet, and if I do play, I'm going to probably beat my head once more and take the points. Herman's been tremendous, not only in an underdog role, but I still want to see what the team can stack up. And here's what I struggle with, and why I've maybe had some problems with betting against an Ohio State and Oklahoma. I write an article every year at this time, and I just posted it about strong balanced offenses. Not only is Oklahoma leading the country in yards per game at 622 per game, but they do it with balance. They run for about better than 280 yards per game, and they pass for over 330 yards per game. And yards per pass with Hurts is elite status. It's over 12 yards per pass attempt. So you if you're gonna take the points, you gotta definitely feel that is Texas going to be able to match up offensively, because Oklahoma's still going to score even against some really good defenses. They're just balanced enough, their strength on offense to do it. So as I'm looking at the underdog, and clearly Texas has the quarterback play and maybe can hold on to the ball enough to keep Oklahoma off the field a little bit. That's what I'm hoping if I'm playing Texas. And you can't underestimate the rivalry, and Google search and read all about this. This is a tremendous game, and Texas has pulled the upset here in recent seasons. And in this game, if I play it, it's going to be on the underdog, and I just got a little more to research. And I'll risk, I guess, if I can't get 11, I think anything double digits is going to be a play for Texas.
Yeah, I don't play into the motivation narratives in the NFL all that much. I mean, these dudes are making millions of dollars. They're you're trying to win a Super Bowl or whatever. The motivation is there, right? I mean, for these guys, and if the money doesn't do it, then it's just not. What else is going to get you up for playing football for a living for 7 figures or 8 figures? For some of these guys? But I actually do kind of buy into the motivation narrative of a bunch of 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids. And like you said, they know what this rivalry means. They know they know the history behind this. They know what's going on. To think that these two teams won't be completely jacked up is I think is being a little foolish here. The average totals that in games that these teams have played so far this year, 68 points in Texas games and 72 points in Oklahoma games. As if you're wondering why this total is set so incredibly high here. Brett, I'm like you. I don't have a play yet on this one. I would probably take the points with Texas here, but I'm weirdly leaning. I weirdly am leaning to the over in this. I think that we might just see. I think we could see another, massive offensive explosion from both of these teams.
Yeah, certainly. This game's tough to cap because we haven't seen Oklahoma play anybody yet. I mean, all those those gaudy offensive numbers. Well, who have they come against? So finally, they get a test here. So this, there's just not enough information for me to have a strong lean on either side. So I'm with you. I think I would probably lean over as well.
We'll all be glued to the television though. That should be this one will
sure.
This one will be fun as hell to watch for sure. So if you're not a college football guy, if you're not a college football person, go ahead and try this one out for size. I think this one will do it for you. I think you will enjoy it for sure. We head into week 6 of the NFL. By the time you listen to this, it will likely be a Patriots win. We don't know by how much, but that game going on a little bit later tonight. So we'll just kind of skip over that one because we don't want to take up your time for something that has already happened here. But looking down the slate here, for me, guys, I'm a big teaser player, and there's not been very many opportunities over the last couple of weeks to play teasers. But you look down the slate this week, and it is just ripe with opportunity here. You have the Bucks and Panthers sitting at 2.5 on that line. You have the Browns and Seahawks sitting at 2. You have the Jags and Saints sitting at 1.5. You have this You have this Cowboys-Jets game sitting at 7, and it's bouncing between 7 and 7.5 for the Cowboys. So obviously that would be bringing it down in that one. You have the Broncos-Titans sitting at 2 as well. Some people like to bring these games down to pick'ems. So you have this Chargers-Steelers game sitting at 6.5. So just a ton of opportunity out there for people who like to play these teaser games here. Jay, I'll start with you on this. As you were kind of doing your initial look down the slate here, did any of those opportunities, one, catch your eye, or two, have they already made your card?
Nothing yet, again, on the card. And I'm like you, I'm do various contests, so I'm evaluating the lines and some of the movement, and we're seeing a number of extreme interest. The one underdog that I'll definitely tease is going to be the Cleveland Browns, despite Seattle taking at DraftKings right now 90% of the bets laying on the road. I know the situation, and the Niners and Browns really kind of screwed here, playing not only Monday night, but now having to come back and play teams that played the previous Thursday. So there's a big rest advantage in preparation for the Seahawks here, but I don't think this is right. We saw the Browns, everyone was kind of ruling them out. They go to Baltimore and beat them when people thought, what's wrong with the Browns? Yeah, they played poorly Monday night against San Fran, who was off the bye and ready. But this is definitely, to me, home underdogs have not done well this year, surprisingly. Despite underdogs overall, I think 47-31 against the spread. Home underdogs have not done well. They're 0-3 last week, straight up against the spread. But I like the Browns here as a teaser for sure. Pretty sure they're still going to make my card here. I'm not a buyer. I told this on the show, on this podcast, I think previously, I'm not as sold on Seattle, and I think despite the extra advantage, that's one game that I'll definitely be teasing. The Browns is a home underdog up above 7, and looking to play them straight as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot for me because I actually have the Seahawks in a teaser leg because this game opened at Seahawks plus 2.5. And right. I went in and jumped on the Seahawks and have them as a teaser leg at plus 8.5. And now that this has switched around to how it has switched around, I don't know. I might try to double dip this one a little bit, Brett. Now that the Browns are catching 2 points here. Might see old Matt playing both sides here and hoping I can hit the middle here. But
those are the spots you dream about, right?
Yeah. I mean, feeling pretty good about this. So I think that's probably something I'm going to be hitting for sure. We'll get into the full slate here, but just getting back on the teaser stuff. Again, a lot of these are prime opportunities for teaser players. Do any of these kind of pique your interest at all? Do any of these numbers where if you had to play them straight up, not really something that you're interested in, but if you could move that thing 6 points and take it through a couple of key numbers, that it might be something you're interested in.
Not really. I mean, some of these numbers I actually like the other side, so there's really no need for me to play the tease. I'm not a teaser guy to begin with. I mean, I rely on you guys for the teaser stuff, but nothing really jumping out at me as far as getting through key numbers at this point. Yeah,
I think taking the Saints through the 3 and the 7 against the Jags is a pretty good bet. I mean, I don't necessarily expect the Saints to win the game against the Jaguars. I think this is kind of a pretty decent little letdown spot here, but that Jaguars offense isn't built to blow anybody out and certainly not win by more than a touchdown there. So kind of like that spot for the Saints as well. And then this number went the opposite way that I thought it was going to do. I actually, talking about that, having opened up the teaser with the Seahawks at plus 2.5, I actually tied that to the Eagles at 2.5. I thought the Eagles were going to catch money in this situation, and actually has gone the other way. The Vikings are now 3.5 point favorites in this. This thing has moved an entire point. Now it is plus money if you want to take Vikings at 3.5, and you got to pay some vig if you want the Eagles at 3.5 here. But I don't know, Jay, what am I missing here? I missed this. I guess I misdiagnosed this one. I thought the Eagles were going to, once people kind of dug in here and saw how badly that Kirk Cousins has performed with teams that have pass rushes. Now, I understand the secondary is not any good for the Eagles, but it's not going to matter if Kirk Cousins doesn't have any time to pass because he just panics and wets the bed and throws the ball up for grabs or takes sacks or whatever. I don't know. What am I missing here? Am I missing something in this one?
Yeah, I think it's the injuries with the Eagles maybe in the secondary, and a little overreaction to maybe the one game or a couple games Cousins had a chance to perform well and did not. But maybe a reverse line movement here, because the Eagles are the one underdog that's shown quite a bit of support at DraftKings, taking I think 76% of the spread bets at +3. And so if you're seeing the Vikings, then even some juice showing on them at 3 or potentially to 3.5, that's a interesting move for certain. Right now, before I play that, I definitely really get a gauge on the Philadelphia injury situation, because they've been banged up, and when they did get beat, it showed that they're secondary, but they're really strong along the offensive line. And so I think if you like the total, I believe this total is going to get bet down a little bit from 44. I'm not playing that either, but a couple other games, I guess, as I look at, you had mentioned we're seeing some. Just as mentioned, Cleveland was the -3 on the look-ahead line going into this week, so now that's a pretty significant movement. And the Ravens were -9. They're up to – they showed 12. Now they're showing 11.5 in places. But that's a matchup that really I think is going to have some scoring when we talk about the totals, because – right now, the Ravens lead the league in rushing, and I don't see Cincinnati being. This is going to be a one-sided attack here, running the ball. And then the Ravens' defense is along 7 yards per play, but their pass defense is really poor. And Cincinnati's only strength right now is to pass the ball. So I think you're going to see both strength versus strength be able to take advantage. And this total is interesting to me, and definitely I've already played over in that game.
Brett, I want to talk to you about this Texans-Chiefs game. This is one that at some places opened as high as 8.5. There were others that opened it at 8 and 7.5, but it is now bet all the way down to Texans +4 in this thing. So tons and tons of support for the Texans here against the Chiefs. My question to you is this. One, I think it would probably open too high as it was anyway, but do you think that this massive movement that we've seen is people doubting the health of Patrick Mahomes, even though he decided to go to the podium and say that he's fine and don't worry about him and his ankle's okay? I think we all have eyeballs, right? And we saw the second his ankle got rolled up on, he was a completely different player. When he's not able to move around and create things with his legs, not only is he less dynamic of a player, but when he had time in the pocket as well, he was very inaccurate. It looked like that ankle had something to do with even his accuracy as well. So, I mean, what do you think's going on with this one?
I mean, typically this would look like a great stock high versus stock low spot against the Texans, unless, like you said, Mahomes isn't right. He's already without his left tackle, Eric Fisher. You got left guard, Andrew Wiley, questionable this week. He got hurt on Sunday. That's his blindside protection. And now on the defensive side, Chris Jones, the best player on that defense, is doubtful this week. He might already be ruled out. I don't know. I need to see more practice reports this week so it's a stay away until we know more about some of these injuries. I mean, what's the line if Mahomes doesn't play or is like
right
at 50%? Like it's a pick, or the Texans are favored, right? I mean, without Mahomes, this Chiefs teams is dust. Yeah.
I mean, there has to be somebody somewhere that at least has some sort of inkling that, not that maybe he won't play, but that maybe this injury is a little bit more significant than they're leading on here. Because, I mean, Jay, we've seen massive movements before, but there's really nothing really for us to tie to for this thing to move 4.5 points at some places, 4 points at others, 3.5 at most of the shops here. I mean, there's no like direct line to this being that mispriced, unless it was just the fact that there's, something going on about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, we see again. There's a reason sometimes to be. It's okay to wait till later in the week. You wanna have the injury news and know not only the quarterbacks, which I think we're going to have no fewer than 10 quarterbacks start this week again that were backups at the start of the year. So you want to get the injury reports on key injuries, and clearly Mahomes would be a critical one. But you want to know that he's good to go. The one thing that I took note on from last week, and then looking at the matchup here against Houston, is the Colts set the blueprint blueprint on how to not only beat the Chiefs but how to attack them last week. I didn't play it, a little frustrated because I knew the line was high, but I was worried about injuries, and the Colts were not full strength going in, but they are one of the better running teams in the league, and they ran for 180 yards, but they ran it 45 times. So what they did is they kept the ball away from Kansas City last week. They held it for 37 minutes and didn't let Mahomes and the offense get on the field. So that's the blueprint. That's how you beat them. They outrushed them 180-36, controlled the ball clock and changed. Now Houston this week, I think, has that same potential. They don't run it for as many yards as Indianapolis. They're about 120 a game, but they run it at over 5 yards per rush. So Houston has a little more explosive passing attack. And to me, if I'm going to play this again, the Chiefs are maybe a little overvalued, but there's certainly been an adjustment from last week. You're not catching even a touchdown like last week. You're catching doubles. But I still think Houston is a solid enough team, and this has the highest total of the week. They're expecting scoring. I think Houston's still a side to look at, and definitely if you're going to play Kansas City, you want to know the situation with Mahomes for certain.
And Brett, I want to bring up this last game here because I think this is another one that I've heard people kind of scratching their head about. And so if we can help them navigate here over the last couple of days before they have to have their bets in here, is this Cowboys and Jets. Cowboys 7-point favorites on the road over at the Jets. Sam Darnold is going to start for the Jets. That said, we do know Chris Herndon is not going to be back for them after all. C.J. Mosley is going to be out for that defense as well. Maybe a couple of offensive linemen down for the Cowboys as well. Lyle Collins and Smith as well have still not practiced as of Thursday here. Jason Garrett did say he hopes that they're going to get out on the field tomorrow, but that's hope. He is only living on hope right now. This is one of the games I hear a lot of buzz about. A lot of people kind of scratching their heads because it's really confusing how to cap this thing, where if you had a Cowboys team at full strength, you would probably think, this is probably not enough. But now, the strength of this team being the offensive line and possibly being down two of those guys, how are you seeing this game?
Yeah, and this is why I like the Packers last week, because Dak turns into a pumpkin without those two tackles, and it showed last week. He was a disaster until the Packers kind of sat back and Dak just compiled a bunch of yards, meaning like empty yards towards the end of the game. But this is definitely an interesting one because, we don't know what Sam Darnold is going to look like. They are getting a little healthier, but like you said, they don't have Mosley back yet. He's missing some weapons. So this is one I'm definitely going to dig into because I wouldn't be shocked to see any result really with this game. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Cowboys win this by 20 points, but I could also see like the Jets getting to Dak and winning this game. So, I don't know yet. Initially I'm leaning Jets just because I think they're going to be much improved with Darnold. And I think, he wasn't injured. Like he's not coming back from that kind of status. He should be okay if he's getting cleared. So I
don't know. I've never had an enlarged spleen, so I don't know how you come. I don't know how you come back from that. I don't know what the Jay. Do we have a doctor's report on how quarterbacks have played after coming back from enlarged spleens? Do we know is there a trend that we can go? Is there a trend that we can go and get like how a quarterback's performed after coming back from an enlarged spleen?
Well, the trend that I know is that the Jets are scoring less than 10 points per game. Their quarterback's coming back rusty, not maybe full health if he does play. And you've got a Cowboys maybe offensive line that is not at its best. On the road here, this total I think should probably be bet down. Too many points to me. If I'm playing this and you want to correlate, if you like the Jets by chance, and I never rule out. I don't. If they have a bad game, I can handle that in the NFL. But what I'm looking at is key injuries, like you said, and then a quarterback trying to come back here. I think this is less scoring than expected. And if you like the correlation by chance of the Rams or the Jets, then you maybe correlate them in the under. But I'm not laying 7 on the road with Dallas with what I've seen now against better competition. Yeah, they've run over the weaker teams, but like you said, some injury situations, and I think they'll be more conservative on offense this week.
I'm glad to hear that because that is one that is in my account already. I do have the under in this one, and for everything that you just said here, Here's the thing is even if the offensive linemen come back in, if they have not practiced through Thursday, there's always that chance of re-injury. Brett, we see this all the time, right? These guys like try to give it a go and they go out there for one series and then they get pulled out of the game again. And as you mentioned, I mean, with this Cowboys team, if they're the heart and soul of this team is the offensive line, which allows them to run the ball and give Dak Prescott enough time, the time that he needs to complete passes down the field to, Gallup and Cooper. And so if the key elements of what makes the Cowboys is either not going to be there or certainly, definitely, I mean, even at this point, we can say even if they play, they're not going to be at 100%. I just don't know where the score, and I think the Cowboys defense is good enough to keep this Jets team from getting on the board, often as well. So I don't know. I know 44 doesn't seem like a high total. I mean, doesn't seem like a high total or anything like that. I mean, but I could see this being kind of an ugly, gross, just back and forth kind of crap fest.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And this Jets defense hasn't been bad. It's definitely been their strength here in the early going. I think they rank in the top half of the league right now, according to Pro Football Focus. So, if you're going to go one direction, I would certainly say the under is the way to go.
Tell us what's going on over at the Lines and Play Picks for our listeners here.
I'll tell you what, we're getting ready for NBA. It's less than 2 weeks away. I've said it before. I'm really excited about this season, more excited than I have been in years. Like, I was actually watching preseason NBA last night while there were playoff baseball games going on. I've never done that before. So we're getting ready. We got some cool stuff coming at the Lines during the season. Our power rankings we're launching this week. So Nate Weitzer will be ranking all 30 teams, comparing them to where the books have them in futures markets. Always a fun exercise there if you're looking for some arbitrage opportunities, or just looking for some value in futures markets, and also seeing where money is coming in there and kind of measuring how, the possibilities of some of these teams actually winning an NBA title versus where they are in the markets. And of course, we'll have Chris Sheridan covering all things NBA during the season. We'll have to bring him on the pod here the next couple of weeks to get his take on what to expect, who he likes, who he doesn't like. I know he loves digging for value. We talked a little bit about that earlier, some long shots. I'm sure he's got some that he's playing this year, so we'll talk to him. But in addition to the NBA ramping up, we've got the usual NFL stuff. Always be on the lookout for Jay's trends to light on fire. I'm sure he'll have some good ones coming to you either today or on Friday.
And Jay, this is just, kind of an underrated time of the year right here. I mean, we have college football entering the meat of the season. We're starting to figure out who these NFL teams are, so they're getting a little bit of identity for us. We have the baseball playoffs going on. Hockey just started. Basketball starts here in a couple of weeks, and we still have golf going on as well. I think this time of year is a little bit underrated. I know we talk a lot about the spring when, of course, it's incredibly awesome. You got NBA and hockey, playoffs going on. You have the Masters. You've got all the things like that. But right now, it's pretty interesting as well.
It's my favorite time right now with everything coming. The basketball season starting. From a football perspective, you got a lot more stats to analyze and gear into. Love being in Vegas at this time of year with the weather, and plenty to look forward to, as well as with the hockey. So this time of year is exciting, and with regards to opportunities in the sports betting landscape, there really hasn't been more. You're going to see more and more opportunities in the prop market and in-game, and so much to take advantage of. And it's a lot to handle when you're not only betting the games, but if you're handicapping and digging, and there's a lot to go on, and you try to specialize as best you can. But there's some exciting opportunities moving forward, and this time of year is, I think, one of the best.
And Brett, that's one of the things we'll endeavor to do on the podcast moving forward, is maybe get in some of these guys that specialize in props as well. I mean, you and I, one of the things that playing higher stakes daily fantasy has done well for me just in the prop market, because basically the thing that you're doing in that method of gambling is you're just trying to predict essentially single player performance, right? And so when these lines are set, a lot of times the sports books don't have time. I mean, I'm looking on DraftKings right now at an NFL game, and there's literally, 150 different ways that you can bet this game in various forms and fashions. And so it's always going to be the spread and total that is the sharpest, and everything from there on is just going to decline. And so I think if people want to try and make money in, the NFL specifically, trying to look a little bit more into these props and seeing if you can find inefficiencies here and there is certainly a way that you can probably boost your bankroll a little bit.
Yeah, and the books know. I mean, the books want to offer as much as they can, but they know that the most value that a bettor is going to find is in these props because there are inefficiencies, and that's why they have caps and limits on some of these props. But if you want to really dive in, I'm sure there's money to be made over the course of the whole season.
Guys, we appreciate you listening again. As always, we are on Apple, we are on Google, we're on Spotify and Stitcher as well. Follow us on Twitter. It's at TheLines US, at PlayPicks US. I'm at Matt Brown M2, at FairwayJay, and at Brett Collson as well. We appreciate you guys being here. We'll talk to you next week.